Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Dead Air Live on Dead Air Full Spectrum YouTube channel. Simulcasting also with KGRA Digital Broadcasting. It's KGRADB.com. Also KGRA on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is George Lopez. With me, as always, Mr. Ken DaCosta. And get ready for an exciting ride. The next 2 hours of paranormal discussions and guests and you guys in the chat who are always engaging. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. Those of you joining us for the first time, maybe you are metal heads with Sheena Metal joining us a little bit later on. Please hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and click on the reminder bell for upcoming content. Maybe perhaps this weekend you happen to be in an area of Massachusetts during a Paracon and somehow, some way, you got the information to join us tonight. So hopefully that happens because, Ken, you've had a very busy weekend. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I was just catching like a quick nap as we signed in.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's just, listen, everything went very well. New venue this year at Plain Ridge Casino in Plainville, Massachusetts. Our first year there after 6 years of an outdoor festival. So the good news is it didn't rain inside the venue hall, although we had a lot of witches and haunted objects that could have easily gone sideways, but they all cooperated. So the weather was good, but for the first year at a new venue, absolutely phenomenal. I can't thank our committee, our attendees, our vendors, our special guests, of which they were legion. They were outstanding. I kind of this today, I always take a day before I send out any sentiments just to decompress. But I kind of know how Tom Petty felt, with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, right? Because Tom, everybody's saying, Ken, what a wonderful job, Ken. And it's like Tom Petty, right? But nobody can name two of the Heartbreakers. So I kind of felt like that. There is, there are so many people who contribute to this thing, and you don't do things like this alone. So I will take those plaudits and those bouquets that are being tossed and make sure that they go to the right people. And that's our committee. Mark, Lisa, Missy, Melissa, and the amazing Julie, who did yeoman's work on this, putting this together, and not to forget Steve Mills. And, so if any of them are listening tonight, I love you guys. Thank you so much. What a great night. And we raised a good hunk of change for our charity, which this year was Camp Braveheart.
Oh, wonderful.
So we've been talking about that. So we did quite well our first year at the new venue, and I liked it. It was very stress-free.
That's important.
We took care of everything,
Give us real quick, Ken, in 30 seconds or more, the origins of the Ocean State Paracon, how this came about. And this is the 9th year that you've been doing this. Of course, we had to skip because of the pandemic last year. But give everybody an idea of how this came together, because a lot of our new viewers maybe are not aware of the fact that this is a charity event that you hold or try to hold each and every year.
Yeah, just lack of common sense, I guess, because when we found out how much work goes into this, actually, started in like 2012, and there really wasn't any of these type of conferences in Rhode Island. And we decided, for whatever reason, that we were going to take the bull by the horns and establish one. But the only caveat to it was that we wanted to do it for charity. It wasn't going to be a commercial event. And over the years, all of our special guests, and we've had some amazing paranormal celebrities, authors, so forth, they all donate their time. They travel on their own dime. It cost us nothing to put it on because of their generosity of their time, which is more important than money. When you lend your time to a good cause, that's what really makes the difference. So we decided that we were just going to do that. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it and pick a different charity every year. And too numerous to mention, but, Autism Society, Wounded Warrior Project, a lot of them. And we're closing in, I think, on like $45,000 that we've raised over the years for these. And I hate the word charity. They're not charities. They're advocacy programs. They're designed to help people that in whatever form that they need, children, families, domestic violence victims, are heroes that protect us, just to give them a little bit of a boost. And we just do a small part in doing it. But I've always said it belongs to all of us. We throw the party, they show up, and it's been an amazing 9 years, 10 years. We got to plan something really special for the 10th year anniversary next year, I think.
Well, seeing that you showed up for the show tonight indicates to me you were not lucky at the craps table. I'm happy about that.
I stayed away from that.
It's difficult. I'm sure it is. But yeah, you had quite an ensemble cast of people that were there for this event this weekend. If you want to share that and any illustrations that you may have.
Yeah, we had Andrea Perron, who comes every year. She's a staple of it. Some of our good friends, some of which we've had on the show. Tiffany Rice, Spirit Medium Tiffany Rice, does a gallery reading. Christopher Rondina, who is an amazing author, who talking about his new book, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which he didn't write, Washington Irving did, but a different take on it, where he traveled to Germany to find the actual identity of the Hessian soldier, who really was the basis for the Headless Horseman. And, lost, was decapitated by a cannonball in battle. All a true story. So his travels to Germany. Sean Austin from The Demon Files a few years back on TV, and Ghost Loop, which played on Travel Channel about a year ago. It was last-minute addition. He was phenomenal. Kitsy Duncan, KJ McGlynn attended and did a special talk on women of the paranormal. There's Kitsy right there. It was absolutely wonderful, celebrating women in the paranormal. And it was an amazing time had by all. Different speakers coming through, and it was absolutely wonderful. So, it turned out well. There's Sean in the forefront of the picture there.
Yeah. And
our friend Tim Weisberg from Midnight FM and Spooky South Coast always comes up with a great presentation every year and gives everybody an insider's look, because Tim is a producer and a researcher on shows like Ghost Stalkers, Haunted Towns. So he gives that kind of insider's view of what it takes to put on a show and the behind-the-scene logistics, kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit.
It's a nice looking venue. That's beautiful. That looks
absolutely beautiful. Nice. Yeah, and they got their basic casino rug there. If you can pull that back up, that's a rug. I think it's the law. You have to have a rug. And that's like comments. It's like, where'd they come up with that rug? It's like, yeah, dude, I don't know. Those ladies right in front are the Lizzie Borden House tour guides.
Right.
And they formed their own paranormal team. So Ellen McNeil there from Haunted Case Files. So an eclectic bunch of vendors, not just related to the paranormal, clothing makers, hat makers, jewelry makers, people who, spent long hours just as artisans, creating things. So there's a little bit something for everybody there. And you get your dose of the paranormal too. There were at least 2 haunted museums represented there. So
yeah, and Andrea Perrin, our dear friend, was there also. There's a lot to see and a lot to do, and I'm glad that it went off without a hitch. That you were indoors, because from what you told me, it was one of those cold days this weekend. So Being able to have that indoor environment, because the last 8 were all outdoors, and it was in July, and doesn't matter where you are in the country, it's still going to be hot. So I'm glad that it all worked out for you guys, though. It's an amazing event, and I've been privy to be there and actually host one year even, and had a great time. So looking forward to seeing what you're going to come up with next year.
Yeah, we're going to take a couple of days off and then maybe plan this thing out. But 2 thumbs up to everybody who was there. You did great. And on behalf of Camp Braveheart and Hope Health, basically children who have suffered a loss, they get free grief counseling in an outdoor camp setting. It's nothing clinical. They kayak and hike and do swim and do outdoor things in a setting like that. So on behalf of them, thank you, and many thanks to this show and the other shows that have been kind enough to invite me on the last week or so and talk a little bit about it to promote it. So
yeah, all that outdoor activity, you'd find me at the bar, most definitely at the bar. But
at the casino, we had we had to pull a couple of people out of the casino.
Yeah,
but we made them pay their admission fee first before they visited the casino.
Oh yeah, this is your entrance fee right here for all the enjoyment for the weekend.
Yeah, I'd like to show up, but I just got taken by the one-armed bandit downstairs.
Yeah. Well, Mr. DaCosta, I see that our very special guest is in the green room right now, and if you'd love to do the introductions, and we'll bring her on, as she's no stranger to the show, please go ahead.
All right, I'm going to have to take a deep breath on this introduction. Believe me, this is one of the busiest, hardest working people in the media today. And I don't say that lightly, but Sheena Metal is an artist, a humanist, a spiritualist, a talk show host. She hosts and performs at comedy shows, a panel moderator, an acting coach, an activist and supporter of charity functions, a producer, a writer. I'm starting to get lightheaded now. An advocate for the LGBTQ community, an entrepreneur, and I'm spent. Please welcome back to Dead Air the incomparable and indefatigable Sheena Metal.
Hey. Thank you, my friend. Wow, how about that intro? That was beautiful.
Yeah, right? I was like, I'm out of breath. I got the vapors.
I know. I get embarrassed when people ask me because the list goes on and on. I'm like, please just go to SheenaMetalSpiritual.com, figure it out.
It's like, you deserve better than that, though, Sheena.
Yeah. But welcome again,
unlike
Sheena.
A lot of people. I'm sorry.
I was saying I'm kind of the over technical guy. You're on your phone. Can you turn it sideways and get a full widescreen for us?
I can, but I don't know what it's going to look like. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Well. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Right, but I got to bring it up now. So just keep talking while I bring it up, because right now I got half a face. Half a face. People working with half a face.
Ken, she's in the boudoir again, Ken. Yeah, remember the last time she had that bedspread?
Oh yeah, I always do it from my bed. Are you kidding me? That's why you work at home, right?
We're doing it wrong, Ken. We're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken's gonna do next week from the couch.
Yes, I got to take a little snooze here while we're good. Okay, we're good.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
We're hanging in there.
It's wonderful to see you both. It's a busy time, right? I mean, first it's the Halloween, then it's the Thanksgiving, then the Christmas and the Hanukkah and the New Year's, and it's you'd think it would be a time where folks like us, spiritual, paranormal people, would get some time off, but it doesn't work like that.
Never.
God bless us, everyone.
No rest for the wicked. Exactly.
No, especially you. My God, it's like you are just involved in so many things, and it's why we love to have you on. You were kind enough to invite George and I on your show, 2 weeks ago?
Of course. Yeah. Please
and
come again.
We spent an hour there, and I'm hoping that for our audience, we can get kind of back into some of those subjects and maybe flesh them out a little bit tonight.
Yeah, I'd love that. Sure.
There's so much to cover, and you are involved in so many aspects of life, and so we're a blank canvas for you tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And for those of you who would like to listen in to the interview with Sheena on her program, how can they get connected with that, Sheena?
Oh, just go to you guys, hauntedplayground.com. The show is called Haunted Playground. SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. Click on the radio page. iHeartRadio.com. Just type in Sheena Metal or either of your names. It'll come up. So there's so many ways to get to. Just Google our three names together. I'm sure lots of links will come up.
No, good luck Googling George Lopez. Good luck with that.
No, well,
you get that other guy.
I did put the R in there in the intros because I'm a good girl.
That helps. That doesn't.
I did remember that part.
Just Google Sheena Metal and then sort through it.
There you go.
Right. Was I supposed to bring a rug? Because I do have a rug. Was there something about a rug earlier? Everyone had to bring a rug. Weren't you saying that when you were talking about about the Paracon? I have a rug. I don't know why. Just happen to have it sitting on my lap.
Okay.
There are no accidents, my friends.
Well, it has to look. It has to look like this. If you don't have carpeting like that, then
that
you're
is
out.
just
No. Well, it does. It does though look like from the 70s, right? I mean, it does look like
it's got
the
that
flooring
vibe.
of the van my parents had in a Dodge van they had in the 70s that had this.
Yeah.
Except that was a 3-tone green
looks like
shag.
the overhead kind of thing where you know what I mean, and maybe a couple of bobbleheads, and it's like
exactly. VW van, 1968 VW van. Sure.
Even that pattern was on blouses and shirts, for crying out loud.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. So, I guess one of the things that we really don't get too much into is origins with you, Sheena, because you've been doing this for so long and you wear so many hats. You are a modern day Renaissance woman. Where does this all start for you? And I don't mean that old adage of, what was your first paranormal experience, but in the aspect of media, where did you get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. You must have read my mind, because just to add to that, there are literally tens of thousands of podcasts these days, especially last year. They popped up because people were socially and culturally isolated. So it's like, I need to talk to somebody. I'll start a podcast. But you were pretty much at the forefront of this going back as far as the paranormal podcast.
Right.
So, I mean, tell us a little bit about your foray into that, and how was it received back then?
I started in 2010. It was received very well. What happened was I, for the first time in my radio career, was not interviewing musical artists, which is how I started. And then when I worked on the Howard Stern affiliate, doing the shock jock stuff where people call and, you kind of dissect their life and make a joke and hang up on them. For the first time, I was doing interviewing. And at the same time, I had gotten to a place where I was really ready to start sort of delving into the PTSD, the trauma from growing up in a haunted house. At that time, paranormal television was booming. And I was watching all the shows because for me, they were therapy. I would see people do their accounts, especially the one-on-one account shows. And I would think, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I went through. And it was a wonderful sort of cathartic experience for me. So I started having those people on my show. That was when Facebook was very accessible. And oftentimes people had their actual email addresses on Facebook. So I just started emailing people and saying, hey, I've got a show. Do you want to come do it? And I was filling up so much time with the paranormal that my boss at the time said, do you want to do your own paranormal show in addition to your daily show? And that was kind of how Haunted Playground started. I was sort of coming out of the closet more with my paranormal beliefs, not yet my psychic gifts. That I still had buried, but I was beginning to sort of inch out in talking about growing up in that house and talking about paranormal things I'd seen, off-world things my family had seen, and becoming much more open about my mother's psychic gifts. I was still deeply embedded in the closet, but coming out about her gifts and talking more about that part of my life. And I found that people were fascinated. And even sometimes it would creep into conversations with guests that you would think had nothing to do with the paranormal. So that was when my boss said, you know what, we don't have a paranormal show. Why don't you do that? And it was received very well. I have found everything about my life, for the most part, in the spiritual and paranormal communities has been received beautifully. Right up to, 24 years into my radio career saying, hey, guess what, everybody, I'm a psychic. And now I'm going to also do this, and thinking I was going to get, rode out of Hollywood on a rail, and everybody being so wonderful and so embracing and so fantastic about it.
The most metaphysical state in the union. You know, I mean,
Exactly.
you're going to be
Exactly.
welcome with open arms in California for
I
sure.
really was, and it was really kind of amazing and kind of beautiful and very unexpected. And I think that's kind of what it. I think in my life, and probably a lot of people in the paranormal community feel this way. Certainly in the spiritual community, I always felt like I never quite fit in. You know, as a kid, I always felt like I wasn't quite like this one, and I wasn't quite like that one, and I didn't fit in with the boys, and I didn't fit in with the girls, and I didn't fit in with the geeks, and I didn't fit in with the jocks, and even with the theater people, I didn't fit in because so many people in the arts world, they perform for their own gratification, for their own healing, for their own needs that need to be felt. And I always performed to enlighten other people and to make other people laugh and to heal the world. So I never quite felt like I fit in there either. I find that even though in a lot of my life that's been a detriment, in my career, it's been kind of a positive because nobody ever quite know where to put me. So they sort of accepted everything I was. And I feel very lucky in that respect because I've seen friends in different industries get very pigeonholed and be able to not be able to get out of that. I think nobody knows what to expect from me. So when something new and crazy happens, they're just like, okay, it's something else with her. We'll put it on the list, just
par for
like
the
the
course.
introduction,
That's
right?
better,
So,
though.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, it's great.
that's
I mean,
better.
I
You
don't-
get more latitude that way.
Yes. I've been very lucky, very lucky. And now going back to doing these, you know, I chose to not take my daily show um, to the iHeartRadio affiliate, to Live Paranormal. I actually am going to bring it here in video format, I believe, next month.
We've
So
December 1st.
that's right. So I'm doing my Raising the Vibration show, which is an outreach of my nonprofit movement, and my Haunted Playground show. So I'm bringing a lot of mainstream guests right now onto these two very genre shows and finding a way to work the spiritual and the paranormal into whatever it is they're promoting. And everybody's been great. I mean, I think everybody secretly has a paranormal and or a spiritual side, and they're looking for a place to talk about it. You know, what's that old adage? You're never supposed to talk about religion or politics with people. People secretly want to talk about those things. And most artistic people have a very spiritual side. And I believe the more spiritual you are, often the more paranormal things happen to you. Because the same channel that we use to download information in our psychic selves, not just those that work as a psychic as I do, but anybody who has intuition or anything, it's the same channel where the information comes for acting, writing, directing, dancing, sculpting. So I think artists are sort of used to tapping into that connection with spirit. But yeah, I just feel like the luckiest girl in the world. And you know, when I hear all the things on my resume and I think, oh my God, it sounds like I'm crazy. All I've really done my whole life, you guys, is just say yes. Just whatever is happening, I just say, okay. And even radio was such an accident. Somebody offered me a show for a week to fill in, and I said yes. I mean, and here I am 27 and some years later. So it's an important message, I think, for people just to say yes, because I think a lot of people are sitting at home right now and they're thinking, you know, I wish I could audition for a play. I wish I could do a painting. I wish I could join a paranormal group. I wish I could learn how to do tarot cards, but then they don't do it. They think it and they want it, and then they think, I'm scared, and they don't do it. And it's so much of life is just about saying yes and just not going away and just doing it.
Just be there. I mean, we were like, speaking for myself, the same way a couple of years ago when they said, hey, do you want to do this? And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to this because I don't know if I have the time or whatever, the acumen to do it. And, you know, I'd like to think we've gotten better, but we just like, yeah, sure, let's give it what's the worst that can happen? But you know what?
Right.
That kind of a great segue into where I want to go with you on this, because you are a person who always has preached persistence. You know,
yes,
get up.
I do.
Get up. And we talked about on the Haunted Playground how things are different today because the delivery system is different. We have the internet, we have YouTube, where information would get out, but it's just a bombardment of it these days. You know, there's a lot of misinformation being put out there about, whether it's a public health crisis or politics or
Sure.
even the paranormal. The idea of going on the internet, it's great because creators have control. You don't have a network sitting on your neck, or you can do this, you can't do that. You put it out there. So that's good. But, some of the content is really good. These are people who just maybe for whatever reason, they're film students or whatever, but they never got that break. So the question is, do you subscribe to the idea that when you put the content out, some of it's great, some of it's not so great? So are you more of the mind that, hey, listen, you do you, and people will tell you if it's bad or not
Absolutely.
by,
Get it out
the
there.
likes, the views, etc. So, I mean, what would you tell people as far as perseverance when they get knocked down or get bad comments and thumbs down? Some people get discouraged. So where do you draw it, the distinction between get up and keep doing it, or, hey, listen, maybe it's not your path, find another path?
I'll tell you a story. In my 20s and 30s, my day job was I booked music in Los Angeles. I booked live shows with bands. And I would see bands that I would, listen to their demo tape back in the day when we had demo tapes. And I would think, oh my God, this band is awful. But they were so nice, and I'd give them a break and let them come play. And they would play all the time. And they would invite everybody from their day jobs. And I would see them build their following from 25 people to 75 people to 150 people. And some of those bands got deals. Then I would listen to a tape and I would think, oh my God, this band is fantastic. But they would never play. They were always finishing that album that never got done. They wouldn't promote, because they didn't want people to come see them till it was perfect. And they disappeared. Nobody ever heard them. It's the tree falling in the forest, right? That nobody hears. What is the definition of good? I mean, it's so subjective, right? Something I think is awful is something that those guys are now completely famous now. A band I thought was wonderful, nobody's heard from. So I think the way the world is now, because that was a pre-internet world, right? And then the beginnings of the internet world. The way the world is now, there's so much content that if your stuff is good and if you are promoting your stuff, and it really is, you have to have a combination of both those things. You have to work it and you have to provide a quality project. Your stuff will rise to the top. And somebody who's doing something that's just really awful, I think just nobody will pay attention to it. And some people, and I noticed this with bands, it's the same analogy, right? Some bands were okay to come and always get the Monday night closing slot at 1:00 in the morning, never bring anybody, play to the sound guy and the bartender and me, all of which, were yawning, although I was trying not to. They weren't trying as hard, but I was. Because everybody wants to go home and close up and there's nobody in there. And they just didn't seem to ever notice. So I think a lot of people who are creating this content that you're talking about, Ken, that are throwing it up on the internet and, after 10 years, they're still getting 3 views. If they're okay with that, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think other people will think, well, wait a minute, how come I'm not a star? And then they will get discouraged and they'll stop. So either way, it kind of, everything gets sort of sorted the way it's supposed to be, I think.
I guess.
But I think it's hard.
Go ahead,
It's hard,
please,
I know.
finish.
I think one of the worst things in the world that you can do to a human being is tell them that there is no hope. And I'll tell you, here's another music industry analogy. I was in the industry full time when the big labels had the problems, started shutting down. Everybody was dropping bands. Labels were consolidating. And there were a lot of people at that time making a lot of money off books and workshops and conventions, all based on you're never going to get a record deal. So here's what you need to do. And I saw the morale and the heart and the wind sort of get knocked out of so many people who no longer thought that brass ring was possible. And I think that human beings, I think one of the reasons capitalism thrives is because human beings love the brass ring. Everybody wants to think, tomorrow I could invent the thing and become the millionaire. Tomorrow, I could suddenly get 500,000 followers on TikTok and become an influencer. Tomorrow, I could win at the casino and get $1 million. And that's where a lot of human beings hope, thrives. So I think if you tell somebody, if there's a great judge that tells people your videos suck, you're never going to make it, this is never going to happen for you, it sort of just takes the wind out of people's sails. And then people find other things to do, like go on the internet and be bigots or find ways to bully people online. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'd rather have people focusing on their own dreams than focusing on a way to knock down people who are achieving their dreams.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, you have we talked a little bit about the spread of misinformation, how it's
Sure.
rampant. Paranormal is not exempt from that because we hear from people all the time who figure they got this thing all figured out, right? They know where ghosts hang out, what they do, what they like, what they want. And to us, I guess we think that this is still an ongoing process, but people take a lot of this information away like it's gospel. And someone who does have, deeply invested in the paranormal, is it frustrating to see that? Or do you just shrug your shoulders and say, meh, whatever?
I mean, yeah, the misinformation is always disheartening. And the skepticism, look, I think to be a true believer, you have to be a good skeptic. I also think there are a lot of people who live in fear. And they're terrified that something in the spiritual or everything in the spiritual and paranormal communities might be right. So they, out of fear, they naysay. And then there are folks that just want to be in control. They want to be the one with the last word, like a heckler in a comedy club, right? If a heckler gets up in a comedy club and starts saying, you suck, you're not funny, oftentimes they don't not think the comic is funny. They just want attention. They want the comic's attention. They want the audience's attention. And I think we see that in the paranormal community where somebody is just looking for attention. And that attention can be pretending your house is haunted, hoping that some TV show is going to come out. Or that attention can be pretending like, you really know it. I figured it out and it's all a bunch of crap. And here's what it is. And I have it on camera that it's all fake. And it's just to make yourself the center of attention so you're in the limelight. I think if there's a little bit unnerving thing that social media has taught us, it's that there are really very few people in the world that don't want to be famous. And people will do anything to get that. What used to be your 15 minutes is now about your 3.5 seconds of fame. Mm-hmm. And I think we see that in the paranormal community. Either somebody knows, well, I know this place that's haunted that nobody knows about, or, oh, I've been to that place you went to and there's nothing there, or, I know the truth about it. And people just want to be right. I knew a guy once, when I was doing my first TV show, so very early in the 90s, very, very seemingly smart guy. And he took me to dinner one night, and the whole basis of the dinner was he wanted to explain to me why reincarnation was real, which I believe, but there was no higher power. And it went on and on. I mean, thank God there was unlimited fries. It went on and on and on about how we go in the ground, and then the energy in the ground, and we decompose. And as we decompose, I mean, it was this insane thing that really made no sense. But he believed very strongly and had flashes of past lives, but he didn't want to believe that there was a God because he didn't want to relinquish the control of there might be something bigger than us out there. So he had come up with this whole way that you literally became a living petri dish in the ground, and then somehow you reincarnate. I mean, it literally made no sense. The only way that would make sense is if you literally grew up out of the ground in your next incarnation and popped up like a pod person. But, people will go to great lengths, right? Both of you to prove that they're right. And sometimes it's just that they want all the eyes turned on them while they're the person that for 3.5 seconds someone is listening to.
Yep, that's the truth. Yeah. Speak your truth.
Our very special guest tonight, Sheena Metal, LA Renaissance personality, multitasking. But I'm listening and I'm sitting there going, yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to people out there, and I've been saying this forever, who have this need for relevance. And, and this will take us back a little bit further when we were talking about AOL chat, if you remember back in the day. People were
Sure.
discovering that, and there was always somebody who just wanted to turn the conversation upside down
Sure.
and make a dramatic exit out of the room, and it's just now you've got a more compartmentalized aspect in the paranormal where people would like to still do the same thing.
Yeah.
And you know, and dismissing, listen, dismissing evidence or trying to explain away evidence is it's paramount for what it is that we do, so that we don't just accept everything that comes our way.
Sure.
Because if that were the fact, we'd all still be going ooh an orb. So you know, we develop and we change and we learn. But there are those out there that no matter what you could present, by the way, right sitting right next to me is Jesus. You know, that's not Jesus, and that's a hippie from San Francisco. You know,
Sure.
they're always going to tear it apart no matter what. When you are doing your radio shows, when you're doing your interviews, which either side of the table that you're on, do you find it frustrating in certain ways that you know what is being presented to you? I'll give you a perfect example for me is the flashlight sessions. You know, that's
Okay.
been disproved years ago that you know it doesn't work. You know, yet people will still to this day swear by it. TV shows to this day will swear by it. When you do what you do in this field, even from the aspect of being a medium, and people say this is the way that it goes, there is are you torn between the personality for entertainment and the personality for the paranormal on how you respond to that?
No. 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 And
Really?
I don't. No, I don't take it personally at all, George. I've learned a lot. You know what I mean? I've been in this business since I was 4 years old. Like I don't take it personally. Um, because you can't. Do you know what I mean? When you grow up an actor, as I did, there's always somebody telling you, you suck.
Sure.
So that wasn't great. You're ugly. So you just,
Rejection
if
is
you're going to
commonplace.
survive, you just get used to the fact that everybody has their opinion and that's okay. And it's like body parts. Everybody has one or more. Um, it, no, I don't, and I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened to me from interviewing people really hardcore since 2009. When I was a young, progressive girl growing up in a very conservative part of Southern California, I was a rebel. Like I wanted this. I never said God. I only said the universe and this. And, I was very rebellious. And when I started interviewing people a lot in 2009, I started realizing that there were people across from me whose energy I loved, but their political beliefs or spiritual beliefs or beliefs on pets or children were so diametrically opposed to mine. And I learned to sort of just love the person and not the beliefs. And at that point, I think I really let go of worrying about what somebody was saying. Do I sometimes, when the interview's over, think, oh my God, everything is a dust or bugs? Yeah, sure. But I don't really sweat it when it's happening during an interview because I understand that there are a lot of people in the world. I mean, I've interviewed tens of thousands of people, and there are people that have, amazing intelligence, and then they have some odd belief of something they read on the internet that they actually think is real.
Oh, come on. That doesn't happen in today's society, does it?
Not at all. Never. I'm really talking about in the 80s. That doesn't happen now. Or I meet somebody who I think is terribly enlightened, and then they'll say something like animals don't have souls. I mean, people sometimes have strange beliefs, and maybe people think some of my beliefs are strange.
Yeah, but when you're having this discussion, this
Sure.
and again, it's you want to talk about point counterpoint.
Sure.
But I know, like for myself, there are certain things. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's arrogance, but when I'm discussing certain things with people, that I need to be a true representative of myself and a true representative
Sure.
of the paranormal. Hey, this is not the way that it is. Not everything that you encounter is demonic. I don't care what the Catholic Church taught you.
Of course.
Not, and we are not, not every picture that you take that has an orb in it is grandmother coming to visit the kids.
Right.
And but there and you look at, okay, there are systematic ways to do this. You
Sure.
can't jump to conclusion. So I guess in a sense I'm
Yes.
it's not that I'm trying to educate or enlighten someone, but to say be aware of everything that you're doing
Yeah.
and test yourself on it. But what you're saying to that is it's let it be, they'll figure it out for themselves kind of thing. Is
Definitely
that
let
right?
them say their piece, because everybody has a right to be heard. Also,
Okay.
I think when you're a woman, and I'm going to gender stereotype right now, it's easy to default to that sort of mothering energy. And I think for me, because I am sort of the ultimate diplomat,
Right.
that test that you take, the Myers-Briggs test, whatever it is that I am, it's like the diplomat. And I think that's so true about me. I always ask everything in a question, like, don't you think that,
Sure.
sometimes it might just be dust in an old place? Or don't you think sometimes what people perceive as demonic might just be some negative energy, or, a negative residual haunting, or your dryer's not working? I mean, I think I always pose everything in a question. And, that's how I was raised. My mother was extremely intelligent, extremely knowledgeable, very educated, a Scorpio. So she should have been extremely opinionated. And trust me, she was. But when it came to raising me, she would, if I said something, she would say, well, don't you think maybe you should give that girl a break? Or wouldn't it be nice if everybody found a way to be nice to that teacher instead of, and I think I just developed that sort of default system of asking questions, because I find that things like radio, television interviews, panels, and conventions, right? They can go real bad real fast. So you have to be very careful when you're dealing with people's opinions and people's. I remember at 2013, Keith Age asked me to come out and moderate panels for Mid-South Paranormal. And I did one that was investigators on one side and psychics on the other. Pretty
Ooh,
much everybody in the panel was a friend or somebody I had met. And
yeah.
man, the audience, I mean, we had to end that thing early because people were screaming, people were
Sure.
getting kicked out. And it was all about whether or not psychics were right and investigators were right. It wasn't anything like that I thought was super heated,
No, but
but
you're
they were.
talking sharks and jets here.
Oh my God, security was pulling people out. This lady was screaming. I thought she was going to have a seizure. I mean, it was a lot of, it was crazy.
Emotional.
And afterwards, my friend Michelle Belanger was on the panel. And afterwards, we were outside like, what just happened? But it was, not a surprise, but a little shocking that things would go so bad so fast. And it can happen on radio. And I've had people, after radio interviews were done, thank me for not, I ended my last radio show screaming at the host. Nobody learns. If it goes there, nobody
The-
learns. And if
no,
I'm completely sedentary in my position and
yeah,
somebody else is in their position and nobody's bending and it's just the two of us spitting across the fence at each other like the Hatfields and McCoys,
yeah.
what does somebody learn at the end? They don't learn anything. They just learn that, oh, I get it. This person believes, Sheena believes this, and the guest believes this, and I believe this at the beginning, and I'm picking one
Right.
of them, instead of thinking about maybe where the truth could be, which is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it kind of defaults back again to the attention part of the
Yeah.
argument and
Yeah.
not the context of what it is that's discussed.
Yeah.
Sheena Metal is a very special guest. It's funny about it because you have to deal with, if you're a medium, you have to deal with those people out there, and
Oh,
I
sure.
do it with the people that I know, and I know Michelle Belanger. She's just wonderful.
she's
sweetest
wonderful.
thing. But I'll joke around with her. Well, you're psychic. Shouldn't you have known that? That's the argument across the board with the paranormal people. Say,
Sure.
well, you're psychic. Shouldn't you know we were going to have an argument during this discussion?
Mhm.
It's just that round and round with no real resolution to anything that we're doing in the field. And I wanted to mention everybody in just a little bit. We're putting up our number that you guys can call in if you want to speak to Sheena on the second hour of the show. However, no, we're not going to be doing readings. So,
Right.
if
And I'm
if
not going to
something-
argue with you.
Yeah, or argue with you, yes. But if Sheena happens in the middle of it going, yeah, I'm getting a message from somebody, that's up to Sheena. But
Sure.
we're not going to be doing readings in the second hour. But if you guys have any questions for the numbers right there on the screen, so make sure you guys definitely call and get your space before we get to the second hour. I'll have Ken come in here in just a second. But, again, you're out there in what I call the metaphysical capital. You're out there in California,
Yeah.
and again, it's almost like that battle over the table between the investigators and the psychics, East Coast versus West Coast,
Oh.
and it is completely different in the aspect of the investigators on this side are 100% methodology, 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 science, equipment, and there seems to be more of a spiritual
Hmm.
perspective when you take it from, let's say, Arizona, possibly even Texas over.
Mhm.
In your interviews and even some of the investigation, have you noticed the same thing that there seems to be that somewhat of a divide? And wouldn't it not be beautiful to be able to find a happy medium right there in the
Well,
middle?
the second part of that question, George, absolutely. Yes, happy mediums is where I live. I'm a happy medium who likes happy mediums. Um, I think overall throughout the country, we're getting better about the idea that psychics and mediums belong in the paranormal world.
God, I
I
hope so.
think from when I started doing Haunted Playground in 2010, that rift has gotten much smaller and much better and much easier to cross,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, I don't know what it is the investigators fear. I think that there's just different people have different kinds of minds. And it's a linear mind and esoteric mind can oftentimes just be very different, right? I mean, there's scientific proof, right? Right brain, left brain. I grew up with an atheist parent who was an engineer. So he basically only believed in things that had batteries or AC cords. He didn't even like people. He mostly liked robots. And I think he was pissed that my mom and I were not robots
I
that he
like your
had made
father
himself.
already.
Yeah, it's good for you. Somebody had to. My mother was a psychic, and she was the daughter of a psychologist. She was all about psychology, spirituality, art, and my father was all about um, inventing and machines and even all the sci-fi he liked. He loved the Isaac Asimov stuff. It was all the very what they call now, what, like they call it like tech sci-fi or something. It's where I had the cast of the oh god, now I can't think of what the show's called. It's now on it'll come to me. It's now on Amazon, but it's very much about the technology of the future sci-fi. He was very much like that. He liked where the robots were described. And they thought all the time, I mean, not just about this, but this was their big thing. And the big trouble when we lived in that house was that he was 100%, it's not real if it's not fact-based. And she was very much, well, what really is fact-based? Because even things that, we thought these things were 10,000 years ago thought to be the devil. And now we know they're just real. So that was an ongoing battle in my house. So I guess it doesn't surprise me that that's an ongoing battle now.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are trying to be better about it. And then also, sometimes, and, this is the sound of psychics hanging up turning off their radios. Sometimes psychics can be, I mean, there are psychics who aren't real, and there are people who just do things for attention. There are even psychics that are good psychics, but they want to fake that thing to get the attention, like we talked about earlier.
Trust me, there are investigators who aren't real either. So
Of course. So I have friends that are psychics. I had a television show on Discovery. I love them. I work with them now. They've been guests on my show a million times. And in the very infancy of their investigating, they encountered a psychic who faked something, and they got caught on camera with her doing it. So for a long time, they made it a rule they didn't work with psychics. And they've just sort of starting to change that rule as they've gotten over that. So I think sometimes bad experiences with people, sometimes the psychics get a bad name from those who do bad things, right?
well, yeah. I mean, the difference is, your father was a pragmatic, but again, that can be objective. It's to each person's
Sure.
answering a question and looking for an answer that's going to be satisfactory to them.
Absolutely. But boy,
so,
did that man have a supernatural end of his life? I mean, the most dramatic. My mother, nothing. My mother literally squeezed my hand and I felt her soul shoot out of her body and she was done. That man, there was fighting between winged things that were black and winged things that were white. And I mean,
don't go further into this because you're going to bring this up on your first show on KGRA on December 1st.
If you want me to, sure.
There's a little teaser. Bill's somewhere in the
Good for
background
you.
right now.
I asked Bill's happy. Yeah,
The
I
producer is
but let me
working
just
somewhere.
say that for a person who claimed nothing in his life, he had an enormous supernatural ending. And even other times in his life when he had like when he had open heart surgery, and one time he had an ear canal rebuilt. I mean, coming out of surgery, it was all this insane. So, he claimed he believed in nothing, yet he had a lot of things happen to him. So again, that's the fear factor, right? We don't want to believe it because it scares us. So we just say it doesn't exist. And I think that's the truth. When I interview investigators, and as we discussed a while ago, I asked those nice motherly, sisterly questions. Well, don't you think? I get a lot of investigators tell me that they've had experiences that were spiritual, and a lot of them had spiritual things happen to them as kids, not just paranormal things, but actually spiritual things. And a lot of them, after you speak gently with them for an hour, will admit to being sensitives. Because I think a really good investigator oftentimes is a sensitive person. If for nothing else, that I think spirits are more drawn to you if they tell you have that intuitive sensibility to be able to tell that they're there. So I don't think the communities are all that different. And the East Coast, West Coast, yeah, I mean, we do everything different, right? I mean, I moved here when I was 13. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut. I'm still very New England. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt from LL Bean. That's just who I am. But my mom was shocked that people wore sandals and shorts to church. I just think in LA, we don't do it the way that they do on the East Coast. And I think that's reflective in our paranormal community as well. I think it's a lot more relaxed here. I think it's a lot more experience and feel based and less evidence based. And it's just what it's like to live here. It's just what it's like to be here. And because my heart is kind of both places, I think I can see sort of both worlds. I'm East Coast and West Coast.
Yeah. Ken, take us to the commercial.
Sure thing. If we have any noise in my background, I have a tenant upstairs who's vacuuming his floor right now, doing construction up there. Sheena, before the break, we got a couple of minutes here. I want to touch a little bit of softball because you said you were kind of into, paranormal TV, and when you're consumed with that.
Ken, tell him to turn off the vacuum or something because you are staticky and frozen. Yeah.
Can't help it. My question is, do you have a preference between procedural shows, the ghost hunting shows, as opposed to the recreation type shows where actors come in and reenact incidents that happened?
Are you asking me that now? Oh,
yes.
I thought we were going to a break.
No, we got a couple of minutes.
My favorite kinds of shows, I love the shows where people tell their experiences and then sometimes they reenact, like a My Ghost Story or Netflix Haunted. I like shows. Those are my favorites because you get to actually see the real people. The ghost hunting shows, my favorite part is the first 10 minutes when they go to the location and interview all the people that live there or all the people that work at the location. That's my favorite. And they reenact the stories of what happened there. What my ex used to call the glowy green eyes show, where the people walk around with the night vision cameras. I love it, but I think now that there are so many shows like that, it has to be done very cleverly because we've seen so much of that. And I think it just kind of becomes like Charlie Brown's mom, wah, 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 unless it is done cleverly. And cleverly doesn't mean pretend you get possessed every week. Cleverly means finding a new way to actually reveal the actual evidence, even if there's none, in a way that is entertaining and in a way that draws people in and makes them want to watch another week. People will watch without everybody getting possessed. I mean, the first season of Ghost Hunters, we were all riveted. Nobody got possessed. I mean, if you look back now at it, you'd probably think, God, it wasn't that much stuff they found. But every little thing was interesting. And I think I interviewed Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, who was the parapsychologist on Britain's Most Haunted, that was originally the Glowy Green Eyes show, right? And he talked about how, being a parapsychologist is you do 3 months of research and then you go to a location for 3 months. And, the first part you're getting your controls and then you go and you investigate and then you take 3 more months and analyze afterwards. And you're thrilled if you get like 2 tiny things. So I think that we have expected now a whole different level of thrill ride. So I guess that's not cleverly. Cleverly is not let's fake it all and hope somebody screams. Cleverly is let's make it interesting. Let's show people how interesting it is to be in a paranormal location and how thrilling it is and how fascinating it is, even if we'll even get nothing. Because it's an amazing experience no matter how much you get. Okay. I think that we should show that more. But otherwise it just starts to all fade in the background. And especially when in the intro, they're already telling you demonic possession is going to happen. They're showing it to you in the preview. I mean, how often, we talked about this when you guys were on my show, but honestly, how often does demonic possession happen? And aren't we glad it doesn't happen more? Why are we wanting everyone to get possessed by a demon?
Well, fear sells. I mean, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
We're going to bring George back in because we are going to be going to break right now. And George, take us in.
Okay, we're going to break. Bill.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The On Air Live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
Welcome back, guys, for our second hour. Our very special guest, Sheena Metal, going to be joining us here again in just a few minutes. Again, we've opened up the phone lines, but before we do, it's important. I'm looking in the chat right now and seeing how many people are watching, but it's not going to be exclusively just for you guys, because over the next week, as people come and watch the show in its recorded form, this is very, very important. Next week, everybody that you know that's in the paranormal needs to come and join us. And this is why. And then Ken is going to give you maybe a couple of disclaimers afterwards. But check this out.
Are you capable of speaking to us?
Keep going. How is this possible? We don't know either.
Say, well, what?
He said, how is this possible?
He said, how is this possible?
With me right now, Ken DaCosta, and there's a lot of mystery shrouded around this, but there are reasons why, and we will get to that with the topic and our guest next Sunday. But Ken, if there's anything you wanted to add to this for what's coming up, because it's unprecedented. It is, to me, the most incredible discovery in our field, as far as I know to this day.
Yeah. Just to preface what's going on, this is something that I just realized myself in the last month or so, where a couple of dear friends of ours who investigate with us asked if they could demonstrate a technique to me. And I said, yeah, absolutely, and they did. And I really have not seen anything like this in 47 years of doing this thing, paranormal investigation. They are not interested in monetizing it or subsidizing it in any way. They think of this as a tool in their toolbox, like a recorder or a camera would be. And their intent is good. They're doing it for all the good and right reasons. But the information that's coming forth in terms of full names, in terms of dates, that we are documenting in real time as they go along in locations where they have no prior knowledge of, is just astounding. And we are going to, with their permission, next week, they're going to come on with us. We're going to give you a demonstration of that. And we'll go into this more next week, other than to say that being on site and being present at the time, this is all recorded. It's been tested. I've participated in it with a skeptical eye and an unbiased eye. And the results of this will probably blow you away. And this is not a teaser so much for, you must tune in. This is something they've agreed to do. They won't be doing it live because, again, they don't want to monetize or in any way compromise or corrupt what it is they're going on. But we will have some video I think will be astounding and very thought-provoking, and ultimately you can be the judge.
Yeah, I understand that, number one, this is a two-party system when you are opening dialogue with the other side. And Ken, get ready and hold on to your chair. And everybody that's watching this right now, be prepared because I'm going to say this. The reaction percentage is 100%. And I've never been able to say that about any other methodology, any other location, any other piece of equipment. 100%. And that is what is mind-boggling to me, because the potential behind it. But I don't want to give too much away. Besides that, we also have our wonderful guest who is waiting in the green room again. Let's bring her back on, Sheena Metal. And Sheena, thank you for
Hi.
joining us on a Sunday evening. Really appreciate it. Are you a football fan?
I'm not. Look,
Then
I
no
watched the Super Bowl for the commercials. I love sports. I know nothing about sports. I love that they exist, but they're not really my thing.
Well, you're also the newest member of the KGRA family.
Uh-oh,
And
so
Bill,
I
if
better-
you want to get the graphic back up, and what a tremendous addition to
Thank
this
you.
network. Wednesdays,
Yeah.
7 to 8 p.m. Eastern, December 1st. You need to be there to hear this woman. This is just a sampling of that, but she is just amazing and so
Yes.
well versed.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
and everything. And we love the idea. We were talking about it privately in chat, behind you. We're talking behind your back, Sheena.
Okay,
before.
that's all right.
Just
You wouldn't be the
loving
first.
the idea that, maybe we can we'll talk about ghosts and everything, but we get into other things with you.
Sure,
And
of
that's what we
course.
love about you as a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not one lane. You're a multiple laned kind of lady, and we
Thank
enjoy
you.
that. So this show starts December 1st. Where's the direction on this going to be? Is it also going to be multi-topical, or is it going to
Yeah.
be strictly on one
Yeah.
road?
It's going to be everything that I've amassed from my spiritual paranormal life and everything I've amassed from my entertainment life kind of brought together. A little bit of everything,
Awesome.
but then always putting a little bit of a spiritual bent on everything and finding out what people think. And I love that. And I have so many wonderful people I've interviewed throughout the years that I know are spiritual people because they're my friends and I know them in real life, but I'm excited to see them sort of bear their spiritual side and their paranormal experiences for the world.
There is a requirement, a KGRA requirement, though, on your first show, and that is to make fun of Bill's very heavy New York accent.
Oh, okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
Do that. You're from the Haven. You know what we're talking
I get it.
about.
I'm a tri-state girl. Sure.
That's it. Exactly. You're right. I have to ask you this though. Let's throw another softball at you. In the tens of thousands of people that you've interviewed, and I'm not calling upon one, but have you had interviews where it's just going sideways? There's one lifeboat, and you just want to make a break for it.
Yeah, very, very few, thankfully.
That's great.
Two come to mind. One, I have a friend who's a publicist, and she handles a lot of the shorts that are nominated in the shorts category of the Oscars. And she brought a filmmaker on and didn't tell me when we got there that he didn't speak English. He was Japanese, and I guess I falsely assumed a lot of Japanese folks spoke English.
Ouch.
He didn't know any English, and the translator knew a little bit of English, but I don't think that translating was really his thing. So this was before I actually admitted to myself that I was a psychic. I kind of had to pull the answers out of the solar plexus of his solar plexus and just into the entire interview as to what he meant. And she kind of called me and apologized. Oh, you did such a great job. How come I didn't know? How come she didn't know probably is the question. Nobody from the team had told her that they were only sending him because messages had gotten mixed up as they had come from Japan to Los Angeles for the Academy Awards, and it was crazy. So I rooted for them when I watched the Oscars. He was lovely. And that was kind of the beginnings of my road of realizing that when I interviewed people, because, my 27 years of radio, I've only been interviewing since 2009. I hear people talk from here but I also hear people talk from their solar plexus. And oftentimes when I'm interviewing, I have to sort of listen to what my ears are hearing, take in what my solar plexus, my gut is getting, and then decipher how to get them to talk about the gut network without coming out and asking questions they don't want to talk about. And that's kind of a thing. And back before I was talking about my gifts, I interviewed somebody from a very well-known comedy show, and we got done, and she said, "What did you do to me?" And I said, "Oh, I just interviewed you." She's like, No. What did you do to me? And I said, I don't know. We didn't interview. And she said, No. What happened? And then I would always make a joke like, "Oh, I'm Harry Potter," or "Oh, I bend space and time," or, I would always make jokes because at that time I didn't want anybody to know who I was. So I think interviewing somebody, like I interview a lot of folks that have Down syndrome. A friend of mine manages a lot of the actors in the Downs community, and Lauren Potter, who was on Glee, and Jamie Brewer, who was on American Horror Story many seasons, have been on the show. And it's easy with Jamie because she's a friend. But when new folks come, my friend who manages them all said, normally I come because I want to interpret between the two. But with you, I just come because I like you to hang out. She said, it's like you speak Downs. But I think we hear different things coming from mouths, right? People speak differently. They speak in different languages. They speak with different abilities or lack of ability. But spiritually, you get the same message from everybody. And I've learned to listen to that. Now, I'll tell you one time, this is the other example. I interviewed a guy who had been on what was a very well-known reality show. It still is. I don't know if he's on it. And I assumed because he was on reality TV, he knew how to give an interview. And because he had done conferences and conventions. And this guy literally gave me nothing for an hour. And I just basically kept asking him questions. And either he would say yes, no, or he wouldn't say anything. And that was the only time I really remember that radio was painful. And he wound up sending me an email a couple of months later and apologizing, saying that his father, who was very domineering and also on the show, that he didn't know what his father would think, so he didn't know if he should answer the questions. I mean, I guess at which point you say, I either shouldn't take the interview or I should ask if I can bring my dad on too, which would have been fine. But I was very shocked because I thought he would know how to do things. I thought he would have been interviewed a lot. It turns out it was his first interview, and he just didn't say anything. So sometimes you get one that kind of clams up, or one that's very cautious of you. So the first part of the interview, they're, kind of like this, and then it takes them a while to warm up. But yeah, there's been a couple of uncomfortable moments. I think I've had more uncomfortable moments sitting in the guest spot here, where hosts just had no idea what to say to me. And I'm just wondering why nobody's talking. So
the Inquisition begins. I know it, right?
We've all been there.
Before we go on, we got a call. Okay, you want to take a call? Bill, we'll take a call. We have our good friend Ronald from Minnesota on the line. Welcome to Dead Air, Ronald. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, Ronald.
Hey,
Ronald. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite host of the three of us, Ronald?
This is taking too long.
The producer.
Oh, Bill the producer.
Bill the producer.
Yeah.
What a
Someone's going to be the new host of next week on KGRA.
Incredible diplomatic answer there, Ron. You should run for office.
And full credit, because when I go to New York and I stay at his house, I don't know what he's going to do if I don't give him full credit. So I got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
So there's nepotism involved here. I see how it is. Ronald, what's your question for Sheena?
I wanted to thank you, first of all, for the show, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone on the show and chat. And, it is Thursday, so make sure to reach out to your family and connect with your family and friends. And anyway, the question I have for all of you, and everyone might have a different answer or the same answer, I don't know. And you might have been asked this before, but here's the question. Do you think that your daily activity attracts or detracts the activity of spiritual or paranormal experience?
As our guest, ladies first, Sheena.
Oh, I'm a magnet. I think everything I do attracts it. I think when I go to a new place, I bring it. Um, if it's already there, I bring it out. I just think there's something about the way that I choose to stay open spiritually all the time and not shut down that just attracts it constantly, no matter where I am. So, and that's okay with me. I kind of like that. I'd like to have it all around me. So, absolutely.
Ken?
I like that.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
what about for you guys?
what's that? Again, Ron?
For both of you, what do you think? Do you think your daily activity attracts or interferes with your paranormal activity?
I don't think I have that gene, to be honest with you, or if I have, it's very dormant. I mean,
Okay.
I just kind of go about my day, and my approach to the paranormal, to the investigation side, to the living side, I don't let what I do, as far as that, define who I am. Basically, it's something that when the time comes, and we have something to tend to, we go.
See, Sheena,
Beyond that,
East Coaster. He's an East Coaster.
that's
Sheena.
it.
Go tri-state boy.
That's it, man. I try to leave it behind and, just celebrate life in general, because we spend enough time listening to sometimes stories that don't have happy endings. So just try not to bring that along, and don't have a lot of experiences in places I've lived or things like that, to be quite honest with you.
I can't say, Ronald, that I can personalize this, but I do agree with you from a general sense. And I just recently spoke about this on the show too. But I think that there is a constant possibility of people getting temporary attachments when they are partaking in certain things, be it a cigar or a steak dinner or chocolate or certain things that fire off endorphins. And I think that some of these spirits, the only way that they can get that sensation again is connecting to a living individual. So I think, that's why alcohol is called spirits. People just,
Yes.
it is a
because you're more
connection.
open. Mhm.
Exactly. So there's a connection to people in general, but for me as an individual, I couldn't say it's something that is on a regular basis. If it was, it'd be great. I wouldn't have to leave to go investigate. I could do it all at home.
I hear you.
All right, and then that would be one more question I have for all of you. Would you investigate your own home? And I've been told myself not to do that, because I just stir up the bees. I shake the beehive, and they get angry. And so some people suggest not to use electronic equipment, which I do anyway because I'm stupid. But anyway, I want to see. First of all, I want to know who these people are that are hanging around my house not paying rent. And then the other
way
thing,
to look at it.
I want to try to learn who they are and try to get a history of it. As far as I know, this house was built in 1945, so it doesn't have any kind of weirdness from the time it was constructed, but the land itself is many years old. So.
All right, Ronnie. Well, we appreciate the call. We'll pass that on.
Very much. And
thank you.
Thanks for the show.
Okay, you bet. Thank you. So,
Thanks,
I
Ronald.
guess in a nutshell, the question would be:
Yeah.
Is it a good idea to investigate your own house?
I
And
think
if so,
that's-
why shouldn't you?
I think that's right up there with would you kick a hornet's nest?
Yeah.
No, it's a horrible idea. Your safe space has to be your safe space. I just watched the Discovery Channel documentary about the Amityville house, the shock jock, which I thought was done very well. And there was a really interesting thing talking about how Lorraine Warren said to the Lutzes, you cannot live in a place like this because your home has to be your peace. If there's not peace at home, you can't have peace in your life. And growing up in a very active house as a child, I can tell you that's 100% true. So the last thing in the world I'm going to do is anything to kick up activity in the home. Now, people say to me, but you read in your home and you do mediumship readings in your home. And that is true, but that's my control. That's me opening a channel, letting somebody in, and then telling them the channel, bye-bye, it's your time to go. It's the difference in letting people come over for a party and letting people come over for a year. When it's in your home and you can't get rid of it, there is no peace in an active home unless you have made peace and the spirits are here to be at peace with you. But if you're always investigating and you're bringing in other hitchhiking spirits and you're doing ghost box and you're doing Ovulus and all this stuff that's not just bringing in who's in your home, but every celestial Tom, Dick, and Harry in a 200-mile radius, that's interfering with the spirits in your home that may be peaceful. It just all gets ugly, you know. It's why we lock our doors. So yeah, I don't. That's one thing I'm really a stickler about.
There is nothing that you just said I disagree with.
I love
I'll
that.
just I know. Very I'm like you. I'm agreeable. To expound on it just a bit though, I see a trend now more and more toward DIY investigating. And I think that the television shows have something to do with that. It's like, I need a camera, I need a recorder, I need a couple of meters, things that go ping and light up. So maybe I don't need a ghost hunter. Maybe I don't need a paranormal investigation team. You know, I can do this myself. And I agree with everything that you just said tenfold. I will add just one thing. And I've seen this happen where we will do a case. We'll go into someone's home and for whatever reason, they're impressed with the gizmos and gadgets. We live in an age of technology. What's that? What's that? So people will go out and purchase these things on their own, figuring, again, DIY. Calling something that you're not expecting, absolutely valid point. But the other thing I've seen people do is become obsessed by it.
Yes.
To the point where they won't make a move. They'll stay in the house with their K2 meter or whatever they just purchased, trying to make contact. And they will tell me that they're doing this. And, you know, as to be as gracious and kind as I can, I said, you know, it's a beautiful day. Maybe you should go for a walk. Just go for a walk. Celebrate life. Have a wonderful day. Because I have seen people become obsessed with the idea of spirit communication to the point that even for short periods of time, they stop living their life.
Yep.
You either coexist, make your peace with it, or whatever you need to do from there. But please don't let it be controlling. Just like we tell people, don't allow yourself to be a victim.
Right.
We also say to people, just, you know, let it not control your behaviors.
Right. Don't become obsessed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm having the same problem with this Star Trek video game on my app. It's I can't let it go.
Yes.
I can't let it go. Go ahead, Sheena.
I have it with the Daily Crossword app. I'm obsessed with the Daily Crossword. You know, I always laugh when I do my shows. I always say, doing a spirit board, doing the ghost box, doing the Ovulus, or whatever you're doing, where you're interacting with spirits, where you're asking EVPs, you know, are you here? Do you want to talk to me? What do you have to say? I always liken that to sort of, you know, walking into a bar at 1:45 a.m. and saying, who wants to have sex with me? Like, there'll be people, but is that really who you want? And I think when you make yourself vulnerable as a naked person in a bar saying that when you're just inviting anyone to come and you're a little desperate for anyone to come, you're going to get something, but it's not going to be the ghost of grandma, and it's not going to be the spirit of mittens. I mean, it's probably going to be some weird thing that's just hanging around waiting for vulnerable people to ask that question so it can jump in and start messing with everybody. Especially the worst thing I ever saw in my life was the bar. It's like, looks like it's for Barbie. It's the pink Ouija board. And it comes in its own little suitcase, like so little girls can take it to slumber parties. I'm like, let's take a bunch of pubescent girls and give them all their own Ouija board specifically for slumber parties. And then chaos ensues. And I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, the spirit world is dangerous. But the spirit world is dangerous. And anything can be dangerous if it's done without supervision. You wouldn't let your kids out on the monkey bars without supervision because they could fall and bang their heads. Things could happen. It's the same thing with the paranormal. You shouldn't fear it, but you should be wary of and wise of what you are dealing with in the same way that you shouldn't fear driving, but you should know that you're now in a giant steel box on a road with a bunch of other giant steel boxes, and you should know what you're doing and be careful.
Yeah.
And I think it's strange that people are encouraged not to do that. It's strange that people think, oh, this would be really fun. But then people also do dumb things like buy a lion as a pet. So, I mean, that's kind of Darwinism at its best, right? Sometimes people just, don't have the sense God gave a chicken, as my mom used to say.
Call the herd.
Let's start a forest fire in the middle of our room at a house.
Exactly. Right. We deal with this in Los Angeles. We're dealing with it right now with the fires. The Santa Ana winds come, everything dries out. And then some weirdo who has chosen to be a compulsive hiker and compulsive smoker at the same time thinks, oh, I can just chuck my cigarette. It's out. And the next thing you know, 45,000 acres are gone. So people need to be wary with Ouija boards. And if you've never been to a spirit board session, perhaps go to one at someone's house that you trust, or if you know a psychic or a medium who does them, before you decide to just buy the thing and open it up in your own house. It's just not, it's not wise. And I don't want to see people getting hurt.
If we had a third hour, and we will have you back, because there are things I would like to ask, like children involved in the paranormal and things like that. I mean, these are things that, but we're going to take a couple more calls here. We got a couple people on hold, and we're going to go to Bobby in Louisiana. Bobby, you are on Dead Air with Sheena Metal.
Oh, wow. Thank you for having a great show. And Sheena, and you're welcome to KGRA.
Thank you.
And yes, so it was something earlier throughout the show that you had to deal with haters. I'm not sure if you was doing podcasting at the time or YouTubing at the time. How did you deal with those haters? And did you have to have like a moderation panel, or what did you actually did?
When I was doing radio shows, you mean, and television shows? I've been so lucky that I have had a minimal amount of haters in my life, in general, and specifically in regard to the spiritual and paranormal world. I have had a very few amount of haters. I don't know why that is. Maybe I just seem like the epitome of neutrality, but I don't put up like Facebook posts where I insult people. I don't negative social media, especially since I founded my nonprofit movement of peace, love, kindness, and unity, raisingthevibration.org. I now kind of feel like, should I really go on Facebook and say something nasty? I'm the Raising the Vibration girl. I don't know why other people get in the middle of these giant paranormal things, and I haven't, because I certainly have opinions. But I just think that there's a way to deal with people that don't agree with you, and where everybody maybe can learn something. And I see a lot of arguing, and I certainly have friends in the community that are always involved, and I'm going to take my Facebook page down because these people won't stop hating me. The only time in my life I've ever dealt with haters was over politics, and it was because other people were hating, and I was refusing to ban and block everyone because I believe people have a right to say whatever they want, even when I don't agree with it. And I've had people hate on me about that. But in the paranormal world, no, I've never had anybody like call me a fraud, but I have had trouble. Other psychics are very mean to each other. They're very competitive, and they're very awful to each other. And I have in my life had other psychics try to say things or try to do things just because, in Buddhism, right? There's an abundance consciousness and a scarcity consciousness. Scarcity consciousness is like, if Ken and George got a television show on Discovery Channel tomorrow, I would feel like, well, damn them. That should have been my show. Abundance consciousness is, hey, two guys that I love had something good happen for them. Maybe that'll help the whole community. I think sometimes in the paranormal and spiritual communities, there is covetousness for the spiritual people, clients, for paranormal people, who's been to that house, who found that house, who's getting the TV shows, who's getting the radio shows. And I think if you start buying into that mentality, you kind of engage the hate to come back at you.
Sheena, is there something that you heard about us being on TV? This is
no, but I would love it. I don't know, it just popped into my head in the bathroom before I came.
What have you heard?
Maybe it's a secret tinkle prophecy. I would love for it to happen for you.
We don't want to appear anxious or anything. So we play it cool.
Tinkle
but
Prophecy.
It be great.
Tinkle Prophecy. New band name, Tinkle Prophecy. I call it.
It's the Tinkle Prophecy.
Bobby, that answer your question?
Yeah. Detail as it gets.
Sure. I think you really put out. You get. I'm sorry, Bobby.
Yes. So, like, if you have something else to say, go ahead.
I said I think you get back what you put out, and I think that's just energy 101, right? I think if you're a person who goes every day somewhere, smiles, and is nice to people, for the most part, that's what you'll get back. There's always going to be those that aren't, and there's always going to be hurdles we have to overcome, and that's part of our life lessons. But I think if you go out looking for an argument, you're going to get one. And I think if, like that panel I talked about that I hosted, if you're expecting to sit there and criticize the psychics or criticize the investigators, and it's going to be, we're all going to fight, then there's going to be a fight. But if you say, hey, look, I'm not a psychic. I choose to not have one on my team, but I still think it's great they exist, and I still think we all should get along, then it's a much kind of different attitude. And I think what Ken was talking about earlier, with everybody wanting to be right and everybody wanting to be first and everybody wanting to have the answer or be the naysayer, is how a lot of the arguments get started. And the truth is, none of us know anything. I mean, the honest to God truth is, I could wake up in an urn full of ashes one day and say, oh no, it was all for nothing. There is none of this. It's all fake. We don't know about any of it. We don't have proof, 100% scientific proof of the existence of God or the existence of spirits. So why are we tearing each other apart over it? It's our beliefs. We should be lifting each other up. I mean, I'm stepping off my soapbox now, but that's just my 2 cents.
I agree.
I think if you go looking for a fight, you're going to get one.
Yeah. All right, Bobby, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah, great show, guys.
Thank you so
sweetheart.
much. We appreciate
you.
it. We're going to take one more because we have one more on hold for a while. Marissa in upstate New York. Hi, Marissa. How are you?
Hi.
You're
Hi,
on.
Marissa.
Oh,
Question?
hi. I have a question.
Sure.
I just wanted to know what everyone's knowledge was on non-human negative entities.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we'll throw that out there. Thank you, Marissa.
Thanks.
All right, Sheena.
I guess Marissa means like earth spirits, interdimensionals, demonic activity, that kind of stuff, demons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, I believe in all of that, and I believe that the universe is a balance of positive and negative. It sort of looks like the yin yang symbol, where negative isn't where positive is, and positive isn't where negative is. And for me, it's a very 50-50 thing. So I think when we investigate the paranormal, we encounter a lot of negative stuff. Some of it's just energy. Some of it is intelligent, like you were talking about. Some of it is actually off-world or interdimensional. Some of it is elemental earth spirit. Some of it is flat out demons. Thankfully, not a lot. And some of it is the negativity of negative people that passed. Mm-hmm. So I absolutely believe in all of that. And that's one of the reasons, Marissa, that I say you have to be careful when you enter the paranormal. Wear something around your neck, hold something in your hand, something that means something to you. Protect yourself. Say a little mantra, a little prayer, whatever it is that you want to do. Hold hands with your team and everybody send each other love and put a little bubble of protection around you, because you never know what you're going to encounter. And a lot of it's going to be beautiful and some of it's not going to be that beautiful. Mm-hmm. And you need to be protected. But I definitely believe in that. I believe there is probably, and I don't know where you stand on this, Ken and George, but I believe there's probably more non-human paranormal activity out there than there is paranormal activity out there, just because of the sheer age of this stuff. And if you factor in other dimensionals and you factor in stuff that interdimensionals, and it's a lot. You factor off-worlders in.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's a lot. It's a lot more than we think. So be careful and protect yourself when you're investigating. Don't dwell on it, but also don't act like it doesn't exist. Marissa, where are you upstate?
I'm in Geneseo in Livingston County.
Beautiful. My mom grew up in Wappingers Falls, Hudson River Valley. That's a haunted area. And talk about off-worlders.
I'll vouch for that. All right, Marissa.
Thank
you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
George, you want to weigh in on that real quick, or?
My opinion on non-human negative is I try to avoid them like the plague. And again, it's just that lack of real understanding. And I don't think as much as you can do the research on this, there are those people who have their opinions, their learned opinions, but their opinions nonetheless, based upon testimony and research that they've done. But to honestly say that there has been enough evidence to say we can definitively understand when we are encountering a non-human negative entity, it's just, it's still out there until the proper device is created or the proper procedure is created. It's tricky. So in any investigation that you're going into, particularly in a negative environment such as an asylum or prison, where something has manifested over time, or something has introduced itself into that environment over time, it's a scary area of this field, and I'm not talking about the negative entity living, like an evil Bigfoot or a Mothman or the Jersey Devil. I'm thinking from those things that we can't see and we can't comprehend, and those are the ones that make me the most nervous and the scariest.
Yeah. Is there an evil Bigfoot? I haven't heard of evil Bigfoot. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's called the skunk ape, and he just doesn't shower.
Is skunk ape supposed to be evil? Oh, okay.
He doesn't shower.
Maybe it's just bad because it lives in a swamp.
Come on, you guys never saw The Legend of Boggy Creek? Come on.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Swamp Thing.
I'll tell you real quick, not to be that guy, the controversial guy, but this is how I feel about the demonic. Really, my roadblock into that is that the demonic, demons by name as we know them in our current culture, a lot of it were literary creations by people like Dante and John Milton, Paradise Lost. You go back to Gilgamesh. You go back to Pliny the Younger, who, was the first ghost hunter, if you go back in text. And what happened was religions borrowed a lot of these stories from each other. They started in Egypt. They started in Scandinavia, the idea of hell. They started in Greek mythology, and their stories were so good that Christianity borrowed elements of those stories. So it's not a question of belief. I guess I'm still searching. But as I kind of look into this, I see that a lot of these things are great stories, which is not as the same as saying I don't believe, but I think the information we get is a little bit muddied because these have been passed down and we take them as the gospel now, as canon.
But it's if we want to categorize it theologically, yes, but Marissa very, very skillfully identified it as non-human negative entities, not demons. And that's because, we'll put that nomenclature right away because it's the quickest way and that's the one that sells the best. You can't, oh my God, there is a non-human evil entity over there. People are, raccoon? What the hell is that? Demon. And it just stirs up it conjures up all those thoughts of religion. So it's interesting how you categorized it versus how Marissa categorized it. And again, I think each person's own interpretation to what that actually is. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't know if we're going to answer it, but
I also think, I'm sorry.
No, we just keep asking the questions, keep seeking these things, I think that's important.
I also think people tend to balk at things that have a religious connotation to them, as demons do. as angels do. But I think we have to remember that and now I'm going to make some enemies, but there is a certain amount of allegories in all religious doctrines because they were interpreted by people. Doesn't mean the stories aren't real. It just means different people throughout the years have put spins on them. But I think there's a granite of truth in every bit of it. You just have to look for the granule of truth. And I think there definitely are negative things that are part of the negative energy of the universe. I don't know that they're as fancy as evil Bigfoot, but I do know that I don't know that they look like the little guy from the Underwood Deviled Ham Spread can. But I do know that they're there in the same way that I know that angels are there. I don't necessarily think they look like small children and they're flying around me playing harps. So I think we have to sort of get ourselves out of the box, even with cryptozoological things that you mentioned, Ken, of thinking these things are one thing and thinking of the potential of their existence without thinking they're going to be that thing that we read about in Dante's Inferno or that thing that I saw in a passion play at church. But think about what that negative energy that's in. To me, a demon is just negative energy that's extremely intelligent. But I'm not going to see, they're not going to be like any hooves or a little spade at the end of the tail or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's why when we start talking about all these categories, I mean, we love to label things. We love to categorize them and get everything in order because it makes us feel smart. It makes us feel wicked smart. And I think that's the delineation between aliens who don't look like us, why they're aliens, and we think of them in a certain way. And we look at, lizards swimming around in lakes and big hairy people running around in the forests because they're not us. But I think that's why ghosts kind of get to us because they do look like us. They are us. So I think it raises people's level of like, oh my God, is this what happens to us? Aliens, little green men, grays, whatever, the cartoonish type things and the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, etc. But ghosts are us. So I think that's why we become so immersed and curious about the afterlife in general, because the reports that come back, for the most part, and of course I've gotten off the the elemental thing here a little bit, supposedly beings that never had human form. I mean, I understand what an elemental is, but I think that this is the thing that compels us and why it really drives us in this field to find those answers, because ghosts are us at the end of the day.
I agree.
All right. Let's see. We got a little bit of time. We have emptied the call room. I wanted to go back to the psychic thing, if I could, for a minute.
Sure.
Before we took the calls, because you touched on this. I have seen psychics do remarkable things. We use one in particular because others have failed in regards to having any faith in them. Psychics aren't always right. With that said, unfortunately, and this is not something new, this has been going on for 200 years. There are, in every walk of life, I don't care if you're a psychic, a roofer, a plumber, there are people that are unscrupulous. And we've all heard the horror stories about people that have been built out of tens of thousands of dollars because they become codependent on a particular psychic. They're vulnerable in some way, shape, or form. And we started to go there, but I'd like to finish this. I can assume how you feel, but I don't want to assume. I want you to tell me how you look upon that when people are preying on people's grief and, some of the horror stories that you must hear. I mean, that's got to hit you a hell of a lot harder than it hits like George and myself and most people who were
Yeah,
involved.
it's awful. It's funny because I'm watching the show on Hulu right now called Shut Eye, which is about the unscrupulous psychics in Los Angeles. And it's easy to see how people get played. And I have clients who have given, near $100,000 to somebody. And I'm not talking about working with them as a spiritual counselor over the years. I'm talking about like $100,000 in like 2 increments to get a curse pulled off of somebody or to manipulate someone to do something. I'll tell you an interesting story, and I touched on this a little bit before, but I grew up playing music and then acting very young. I thought I would never in my life encounter anything worse than how actresses treat each other until I became a psychic. And I thought, oh, this is going to be so wonderful to become a professional psychic. And everybody's going to be so great and embrace each other and love each other. And boy, that's how it started. But I have to tell you, there's a lot of ego that comes with it. And years ago, before I was out as a psychic, I had kind of a weird run-in with some psychics that were not good people. And just in interviewing them on my radio show and weird drama that ensued. And I used to book music on the Sunset Strip at a club right next to the Whiskey A Go-Go. And right next to it was one of the traditional psychic hand places owned probably by Roma family. And the old guy, you'd hardly ever see the old guy come out like once a day and smoke. And one day he was out there smoking, and my young 30s self went over and said, "May I ask you something, sir?" And he kind of looked at me like, here comes the free psychic reading. And I said, "Why is it that psychics are not nice people? My mom was a psychic and she was great, and I just assumed all psychics were nice people." And he kind of looked at me and I think was so relieved I wasn't asking for a reading. And he said, when your profession is that people think you have the answers no one else has, they treat you like you're more than human. They treat you like a god. So somebody has to be very secure within themselves and very connected to themselves in order to not let that get to their heads. And I thought that was like the most amazing response. I repeat it all the time.
Pretty good.
I don't think there's a better explanation for it. You have to be very connected to yourself in order to be able to do what I do and have people worship you. And they do. I mean, but I grew up as an actress and a musician and a radio host. So I've seen that kind of worship and I've never let any of it get to me. So it's natural for me that I don't let that get to my head. But if you're, sort of a lonely kid who maybe doesn't have a lot of people in your life, and you start throwing some tarot cards and suddenly everybody's on your doorstep with $25, that can affect you. So probably the meanest things that have ever happened to me in my life have happened to me by psychics. And certainly the most deflammatory stuff, people getting your social media shut down. I mean, all this kind of crazy stuff. And I was so ill prepared for that. And it makes me sad that I have to guard myself around other people because, I was founding an organization called Lightworkers Unite, and I still will. I think we all need to be united. But the problem is there are just some people who want to get the TV show, want to get the $1 million, want to be worshipped so badly that they don't care what they have to do to get there, whether it's push a psychic under a bus, figuratively or literally, another psychic, or whether it's make up whatever they have to make up to be the star. And it's very upsetting for me, and very upsetting even on television when I see it, the psychics that pretend to get possessed every week, or the investigators who their shows aren't getting the great ratings anymore, so now suddenly they're going to be psychics. It's like so obviously a way to make money. And people say to me, "Well, what about you? You were an actor and then suddenly you were a psychic." Well, I was always a psychic. My mother was a psychic. My near-death experience made it worse. I became more psychic. Her death and getting her gifts made it even more psychic. And it just was a time to tell the world who I was. But for some folks, I think it becomes an opportunity to make money and or to get attention. And I think those are the two most dangerous things about people, right? When people suddenly want money or when they suddenly want attention, that's when things get crazy. So yeah, it's been a hard thing for me. And people in my life that love me have had to hear about it a lot. It's been the hardest thing about the last 3.5 years of my life has been that I was this radio host who had a group of psychics that were friends who all encouraged me to come out and tell people I was a psychic. But then when I started doing things or my practice started doing well, then suddenly it was, well, and that's I don't talk about that a lot. You kind of brought that out of me, but it's been a rough road. I don't know why we can't all be nice to each other and encourage each other. But again, abundance consciousness, scarcity consciousness, right?
Yeah. Sometimes, Sheena, sometimes that come to Jesus moment sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Too many times. But you're coming full circle now from having to deal with all that to joining a new family.
I know, right? So exciting.
December 1st. And have you decided on a name for the show? Or is it going to be a continuation?
Yeah, it's going to be a continuation of my daily radio show that's now going to be this television video format, and it's called the Sheena Metal Experience.
I think Tinkle Prophecy is the next
Tinkle
step.
Prophecy. Maybe I'll do a second show that'll be called Tinkle Prophecy. I'm in my bathroom, and people ask questions. You just wait for me to tinkle, and then the answers are revealed.
I need to subscribe. KGRADB.com. Make sure you guys log in. And again, if you want to follow Sheena on all her different programs, what is the best ways for them to keep up with of all the things that you're doing, actually?
My website is sheenametalspiritual.com. I am Sheena Metal on all social media platforms. Just go and find me there. And my radio shows are on the Live Paranormal Radio Network, and we're syndicated to iHeartRadio and Google Podcast, Stitcher, iTunes, a whole bunch. And you can find me there. Go to my radio page on my website, sheenametalspiritual.com, and I have a video page with some of the video shows I do, live readings I do, and at the very top of that page is this new show. So you can find out everything about this new show by going to sheenametalspiritual.com.
And for those of you out there, she will be launched in the next Jeff Bezos shot going into outer space, because that's about the only thing that she hasn't accomplished.
And no words to it. I got lots of earth in my chart. I like it right where I am.
We love having you on. We love you. We wish you the best of luck. Well, you don't need luck. You're going to knock it out of the park.
Oh, I appreciate it, Tom. I'm an Irishman. We live on luck.
Hey, listen, have your agent call my agent, and we'll have you back on the show and us on your show. Let's have some fun.
Whenever you want.
You take care of yourself, love. Thank you again. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, my friends. Happy Thanksgiving.
Be well, Sheena.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Oh, man, that was great, as always. Once again, guys, make sure you share this particular episode as much as you possibly can. Particularly about next week's show. And then once Ken puts up the banner, you'll know which guests will be joining us. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up, and the reminder bell. On behalf of Ken DaCosta, my name is George Lopez. We'll see you next week. This has been Dead Air Live on Dead Air Full Spectrum. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.